The 1989 Budweiser Ironman Canada, one of the toughest triathlons in the world, from beautiful Penticton, British Columbia. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Armitage along with Steve King. Michelle Gibson will be on the course. We're standing at the finish line of what can only be described as a grueling athletic event. Steve, we've got excellent weather conditions. We've got a strong field. We could see some records.
I think we might see an overall course record today. Of course, 1988 defending champion Ray Browning, but he's going to go head-to-head with Wallach, Hinshaw, Tom Price and Peter Schmidt. And on the ladies category, we've got JulieAnne White, who was second last year, and going against her, we have Sharon Best and Karen Drott. I expect them to be up there.
Making up the Ironman competition is a swim, followed by a bike race, and then a full marathon, 26 miles. Right now, let's hit the beach and join the athletes as they get set for the swim competition. 814 athletes getting set for the swim portion of the competition, 2.4 miles in Okanagan Lake. We've got athletes representing 13 nations on hand today, 8 Canadian provinces, and 40 of the states in the United States. So, Steve King, good representation.
Indeed, we're very pleased. This is the most we've had in terms of other nations represented. But right now, the athletes are anxiously awaiting the start. We're only about 15 minutes away from the start. You can see some of the athletes greasing up, getting prepared. They've also got to get prepared mentally. They know it's a tough day ahead of them. Let's remember, they have to finish within 17 hours. That's the official cutoff time. A lot of them looking out there, looking at that water. Some of them been in the water the last few days. A lot of them have arrived in Penticton up to 2 or 3 weeks before the race.
Steve, a lot of the athletes putting on grease. Some will be wearing wetsuits. Is that mandatory in these conditions?
It isn't mandatory, but it would be foolhardy not really to wear a wetsuit because of the ability to go a little faster in them. They are obviously there for a safety reason too, but we're looking at Ray Browning there, the 1988 winner of Ironman Canada. And what a performance, the first man to go under 9 hours for this very tough course.
That was last year, 1988, in the Budweiser Ironman Canada competition, and Ray Browning, the winner.
But the man who led him for most of the way, certainly after the bike he was leading, was Dean Lindell from Victoria. And Dean is back in the field today. You remember, he set a time just under 50 minutes for the swim, and then he went onto the bike to become the very first man ever to go under 5 hours for the 112-mile bike portion. Set a record time of 4:52, overall time into transition of 5:42. He'll be back in the field today, as will the other man just taking him there, Steve the Moose Wallach.
This was last year, 1988, and this was Lindell coming in across the finish line with a time of almost 13 hours. Disappointing for Dean Lindell of Victoria after a strong swim and run. And this is Dean Lindell in 1989. And that was Ray Browning, wishing him luck there as the swim portion is about to get underway. Water temperature, 18 degrees Celsius, the air temperature 20 degrees Celsius. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning here in Penticton after a rather rough night. Now we're taking a look at the swim course. Steve?
The first leg, 1,800 meters as they head towards Sage Mesa. They make a left turn to around a buoy there, and the second portion coming up to the SS Sycamores, 1,300 meters. Then they have 764 meters to go to that transition area before they get off on their way on their bikes. The bike course, 112 miles, starting out, of course, from the transition area up Main Street in Penticton, going towards the village of Okanagan Falls along East Side Road, and then up to the Oliver, through to Osoyoos, the Husky Station. Then they make the turn up towards Richter Pass, the dreaded Richter. They make the turn back down the hill towards the Husky Station, and then back through the same route to the transition area and out onto the 26.2-mile marathon run. The run takes them along East Side Road to, again, the village of Okanagan Falls. They make the turn there. It's an out and back course, then back down Main Street to the finish line in Penticton.
A demanding test for 718 men, 96 women. And Steve, when you think back to 1983, when only 25 men challenged the course and 1 woman, that's a tremendous increase.
It certainly is, and the winner then was Mike Wagstaff. His time was 10:41. We could possibly see a time today 2 hours faster than that. The women's time then, over 15 hours, that was set by Diane Lynch. We've seen the lady last year, Paula Johnson, did it in 9 hours, 50 minutes.
Now, unlike the Nice Triathlon, where the athletes start with a Le Mans type start, running into the water, this time they are actually waist deep in the water before they start. I think this is a much safer start. As we look at our underwater camera, you'll be seeing that throughout the swim. We think it's unique, it's special, it's different. It'll give you a different view of the swim.
And believe you me, it's really tough to be in there amongst that many swimmers. You have to vie for position, and of course it would have been safe for most of the athletes to actually self-seed. Some of them won't have done so, and they'll get knocked and banged around and maybe have their goggles knocked off, etc. But after a while, hopefully they'll get into a position and a pace that they're comfortable with.
Now, the one thing the athletes don't have to worry about on Okanagan Lake is a tide.
That's true. However, the weather has been really rough for the last couple of weeks. And so the athletes, I'm sure, are really pleased to get up this morning and see that the waters are fairly calm and the sun is shining.
Now, Steve, you've competed in these triathlons in the past. Is there a difference between competing in lake water and, say, seawater?
There is in terms of the flotation, but that's the reason they have wetsuits as well, apart from obviously the water temperature. So they're really going to be comfortable out there, and we can see times that should equate to what we see being recorded in Hawaii.
A truly amazing sight as we look at the swim portion, which is underway. 800 athletes in the water. And thousands of balloons have been released here in Penticton to get this race underway, something that is looked forward to anxiously by the 4,200 volunteers that help make this race so successful.
It certainly is. It's one of the most highly rated triathlons in the world and one of 5 official Ironman races around the world. And we're really pleased to see some of the top names in the sport here today, including Chris Hinshaw. And it looks as though Chris Hinshaw, the young man from Arcata, California, is out front at this time. He's spearheading, but we do know Ray Browning is also very close at hand.
Now, how important is it for people like Hinshaw and Browning to separate themselves from the pack?
Well, they'll want to do that because they may get someone drafting right behind them, but it's very difficult to do when you've got over 800 swimmers out there. Of course, Dean Lindell, the young man we saw shaking hands with Ray Browning at the start, he'll be vying for position also out there. But we've got some tremendous swimmers in the field, and we certainly, I would expect to see under 50 minutes. That is Chris Hinshaw on his back, taking a look to see where the others are, probably checking to see if anyone is drafting off the back of his feet. That's not happening right now, so he wants to open up a gap. So any time he gets in front now, he'll have to be able to go out onto the bike and get clear.
And we should point out that that is a perfectly legal move on the part of Hinshaw, Steve.
Indeed it is, Steve. One of the things I should point out is the ladies are wearing the red bathing caps, the men the white, and the lead woman right now is Bonnie Dirty from Culver City, and this lady holds world masters records for swimming 400 meters, 800 meters, and the mile, so she could come out ahead in the ladies division.
The Ironman competition is a demanding event, as we pointed out, so you have to make sure that you eat the proper foods prior to the competition. One of the recent theories that has sort of been shot down over the last little while is a thing called carbo loading, eating lots of pastas prior to the event.
That's right, Steve. Now most people just come along because it's more of a social occasion. They know it's a good idea to eat a lot of complex carbos, and that's what they're doing here this evening. However, as long as you maintain a good base, say about 70% of carbohydrates in your diet, then everything should be okay. Obviously, just prior to competition, you don't want to have too many simple carbohydrates, a lot of sugars. We saw the Iron Baby there, interesting to see, and there's a young man who had a very special haircut just for this race, the Ironman logo.
We see that in all sorts of sports, and it carries over to the Ironman competition.
And we'll get back right now to the swim portion of this event, and it is Bonnie Dirty still out front. And I believe if she can maintain this sort of pace, remember we're still in the early stages, we've yet to come up to that 1800 meter point, but she is swimming at a phenomenal pace, and the women's record held by Catherine Che for the swim portion, just over 53 minutes. But if she can maintain the sort of pace that she's keeping, possibly we could see a sub 50-minute clocking for the First Lady, and that would be a new world record for any swim portion for a woman in an Ironman competition.
And that's a good look, Steve, right there, of how they draft. They swim head to toe, head to toe.
Indeed, and Chris Hinshaw, it's his first appearance here in Penticton for the Ironman Canada, and he's approaching that first buoy. Not too far away now, and he's opened up somewhat a little bit there, but he recently set a time for himself of 9:03. That was in October last year in the Hawaiian Ironman. He placed 14th overall there, but he had a second place in 1985 to Scott Tinley. Bonnie Dirty, however, doing her very first Ironman, and she had a bike accident recently, so we don't know how she's going to be once she gets out of the swim and onto the bike.
Again, a look at the swimmers from below the water.
I would imagine it's pretty scary for those swimmers as they see the frogman outfits that they're wearing. We've had some recent sightings of the famed Ogopogo monster, so I hope they're not too scared by that. They're more focused on the race. A lot of these guys really want to be out there. But remember, it's not just the prestige of winning overall, but the age group titles on the line as well. And hopefully we'll see a number of records set today.
Now we're coming up to the first turn, and this is Chris Hinshaw from Arcata, California, the leader.
And his time, just over 21 minutes, that's for 1,800 meters, so a very fast time. It could mean between 48 to 50 minutes. That could be a new record. Remember, though, to set an actual record, you have to complete the entire distance. A record was set by Dave Kirk in 1987. He did 47:30, but unfortunately, Dave had to quit in the run portion.
So Hinshaw first to make the turn and to begin the second leg.
And that'll be 1,300 meters heading towards the SS Sycamus, a stern wheeler. First lady approaching the turn. Again, it is Bonnie Dirty from Culver City, a member of the National Triathlon Training Camp team.
And you saw Bonnie raise herself out of the water there just to get a good look at the situation as she approaches the turn.
I want to mention another lady we have in the field, a swimmer of renown in Canada, Jocelyn Muir, who is racer number 82. This is the lady who swam the entire circumference of Lake Ontario. I believe it took her just over 60 days swimming 7 to 8 hours a day. And we saw her a couple of weeks ago competing in the Vancouver International Triathlon.
And again, you're looking at the swimmers as they make the turn from below the water. Tremendous work on the part of our cameraman.
And we're very pleased to get a fisheye view as these swimmers approach the halfway mark of the 2.4-mile swim.
We'll be back with more of the swim competition in the Budweiser Ironman Canada in just a moment. Welcome back to the Budweiser Ironman Canada in Penticton. I'm Steve Armitage along with Steve King, and we are now into the second leg of the swim competition.
This means they're on the final 2 kilometers, and in fact they're getting closer and closer. But remember, it's 3.8 kilometers for those of you who are not familiar with the terms of miles. Obviously the Americans there, they like to use the miles still, 2.4 miles. The race originated from a rough water swim in Hawaii, And this is how the Ironman got started. They incorporated all three of the major events there in Hawaii, around Oahu cycle race, and then the Honolulu Marathon. Put it all together, 1978 in Hawaii, the very first Ironman, and we were really pleased. In 1983, a race was brought to Penticton, and we're seeing all sorts of wonderful things happen here. Lots of people converging on Penticton and the South Okanagan.
And it wouldn't be an Ironman in Penticton without a parade. Doug Street leading the Penticton Pipe Band. Always a very popular point of the Ironman, the big parade down the main street of Penticton the day before. All the athletes, there are some representing Canada. As we mentioned, 40 states from the United States are represented. North Carolina, Arkansas, you name it, they're here.
And we're really pleased because this year also we have our very first Estonian competitor. It was only last year in Hawaii that two Estonians, very first time any people from Russia have competed in an international Ironman. So we're really pleased to see Mr. Alexander Lamass, racer number 42, with us today.
The NWT.
The Northwest Territories, the Yukon, Japan also represented.
Out in the lead, though, is Chris Hinshaw from Arcata, California, checking behind him because Peter Schmidt of Victoria is in second place, just a couple of meters back. And it was Peter who was second here in Penticton in Ironman Canada in 1987.
And that time you see on the bottom of the screen is the elapsed time for Hinshaw in the swim, 38 minutes and 52 seconds. He is going very well and approaching the final turn.
As he makes a turn, that means he's only got 764 meters left to that finish line. But right now, he'll be heading directly facing into that sun. So hopefully he'll be able to get some good sighting. He's made the turn. He can see there are spectators to the right, but as he looks ahead, it's going to be a little tough for him. I think the sun has caused problems for a lot of the swimmers as they made that very first turn.
And there you see a water-level view of the swimmers, and now we go under the water. You can see that rope which anchors the buoy, which indicates the final turn for the swimmers. And the different ways that the swimmers take the turn. Some go into it flat out. Others want to get as close to the buoy as possible before they make the turn. And this is Bonnie Dirty, who continues to lead the women swimmers, and she's doing an excellent job. She's not that far behind Hinshaw.
She certainly isn't. In fact, she's in third place overall at this point. Together with there's a couple of guys, I believe, just behind her, and included there is Darcy Lytle from Vedder Crossing and also Rock Frey from Stony Plain, Alberta. And Rock has had a great race last weekend. He placed second to Dave Kirk in the Kelowna Apple Triathlon. But Bonnie Dirty, what a race she's putting up. We've never had a lady come out in the top 3 or 4 men, or with the top 3 or 4 men before, so a fine performance from this young lady.
And here's a magnificent shot from our helicopter overhead. It gives you an idea of what Hinshaw has left in terms of distance, and you can see the water depth. It's a sandy bottom for the first 300 or 400 meters off the shore. It's not rough, it's very smooth and very calm, and Hinshaw is really turning it on now.
He is, and it looks like we're definitely heading for a sub-50-minute clocking here, so he can open up some time because we understand Ray Browning is a couple of minutes back at this point.
Hinshaw only a few meters offshore, being followed by Schmidt of Victoria. You can see the canoe, the sort of an outrider, just making sure that he stays on course. And now you can see Hinshaw. We talked about the sun bothering him. He came up out of the water, removed the goggles, and took a look and saw just how far he had to go.
And what both men must be thinking about now is that transition area just a few meters away from them. We have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of componentry there in the transition area. Remember, over 800 racers here with us today. All sorts of innovative ideas come into the world of cycling because of triathlons. You've seen the handlebars. Remember Greg LeMond in the great Tour de France effort there. That was because of the handlebars he used, because of the new aerodynamics that has been involved in the sport. Grip shift levers there so they don't have to go to the down tube to change gears. Lots of water bottles and other liquids, of course. They've got to keep hydrated on that cycle and the run portion. One of the things that all triathletes fear, however, is a mechanical breakdown. So they'll be taking spare tubes with them and, of course, some food to help them power their way through the tremendously tough Ironman cycle portion. But back into the swim, it's Bonnie Dirty still leading the women's competition and doing extremely well overall. But in the men's competition, it is Chris Hinshaw coming out ahead of Peter Schmidt. Now just a few meters to go, and it looks like we're going to easily get under the 50-minute clocking and possibly under 49 minutes. So Chris Hinshaw from Arcata, California, exactly where he wanted to be because he really fears Ray Browning, the defending champion. But he has a reason to fear the second place man too, Peter Schmidt. As they come up to shore, thousands of spectators there to welcome them. Their times will be taken as they run through the timing chutes.
Chris Hinshaw of Arcata, California, the first to complete the 2.4-mile swim. And Hinshaw will waste no time at all in getting that wetsuit off. He wants to get that out of the way and onto the bike as quickly as possible. You saw Peter Schmidt in the black wetsuit. He is in second place right now, and he'll try to get to his bike as quickly as possible. Hinshaw grabs the bag. That'll be the top that he'll wear during the cycle run. Back in the water, it is Bonnie Dirty, and she is going to be the first woman out of the water. What a magnificent race she has swum.
No doubt about it, she's in very good company there, but we've seen a men's record. If Chris Hinshaw can just finish the race today, we've seen a new men's record set for the swim portion. His time, 48 minutes, 39 seconds, 4 seconds ahead of Peter Schmidt. And a ladies' record, no doubt, going to be beaten today, but it's Peter Schmidt who's getting out to the bike first. So he's opened up a little time in transition area. Don't forget the transition and the changing is almost like the fourth discipline of a triathlon. So coming into transition now, they're running towards his bike. That is Chris Hinshaw. You can see that a few seconds just lost there as he got changed. So Chris Hinshaw about to take off, but it's Peter Schmidt going out first onto the cycle portion. But coming up to the shore now is Bonnie Dirty, and a brilliant time from her, 49 minutes and 51 seconds. That's over 4 minutes ahead of Catherine Che's previous best for the swim. A brilliant performance. No wonder she's a master swim record holder. Going out onto the bike course now, though, it is Peter Schmidt in the lead.
And he is followed by Chris Hinshaw. So an interesting battle shaping up on the bikes now. In the transition area, it's California's Bonnie Dirty, the first woman out of the water, getting her clothing and getting set for the cycle portion.
And she's also a member of that NTTC team, and they're going to be delighted with these performances because Hinshaw's also a member, as is a man who's still coming out, and I believe that'll be Mark Wendley. The other two men in the picture in the transition area there, Rock Frey from Stony Plain, Alberta, the man who placed second last weekend, and Darcy Lytle from Vedder Crossing, who completed the Penticton Scar Lake Ultra Swim just a few weeks ago. But it is Mark Wendley coming out of the water at this time, just over 50 minutes into the race. We are awaiting Ray Browning to come out of the water too. We believe he's going to be coming out shortly. There goes the third place man, Rock Frey, going out onto the bike portion. He could hold that. He's a very fine cyclist too. That's Mark Wendley getting changed, looking around him. And that is Ray Browning. Ray Browning now out of the water, and race time 51:03. A little bit slower than what he did last year. That's just 23 seconds slower than last year, though. But there goes Bonnie Dirty out onto the bike portion. Remember, it was just a couple of months ago she had a serious bike accident, so we're really pleased she's here with us. But it's Ray Browning running towards his bike, and what a year this man has had.
Remember, he's the defending champion. And again, we look at Dean Lindell from Victoria, who had a disappointing race last year and is back to improve himself this year. Ray Browning getting his equipment on for the cycle portion.
Heading south on Main Street in Penticton, though, it looks like Chris Hinshaw there moving to the right of Peter Schmidt. And remember, this is a man who placed second in the Hawaiian Ironman 1985 to Scott Tinley. Last year he competed in Brazil in an Ironman distance triathlon. He won that one, so he really is a formidable competitor.
An excellent swimmer. What kind of a cyclist is he?
He's a very good cyclist. Last year in Hawaii, he placed 14th overall and did a sub-5 hour clocking. And what a course this is, this cycle portion, as they head through Okanagan Falls, East Side Road. That is Ray Browning now coming out of transition, and he'll be making his way to OK Falls, as will Dean Lindell. And remember, last year, Dean Lindell was the first man back off the bike and onto the run, but he holds the course record just for the bike split. That was 4 hours and 52 minutes. A brilliant performance, and anyone who can get under 5 hours on this sort of a course is a phenomenal cyclist. Mark Wendley from the NTTC team going out there. He'll be happy to know Hinshaw's doing as well as he is. Other swimmers now coming out of the water, and don't forget we had over 800 enter the water just over 50 minutes ago. Steve Wallach amongst them, and Steve's time as he comes through there, 53:30, and that is almost identical to his time of last year, 9 seconds faster in fact.
We've seen a lot of the elite athletes come out of the water and get onto their bikes, as again we look at Wallach, who's from Moose Jaw. His nickname is Moose. He looks like fun.
And he's a very strong man. lot of people think, you know, with that sort of bulk, he wouldn't be able to run, but he can. Dan McGregor there from Calgary, and Dan's done this race here in Penticton on 6 different occasions, so we're really pleased to see him back once again. But now the Moose is set loose on the cycling portion, and he was only 12 seconds shy of a sub 5-hour clocking last year, so he can really open up on this particular part of the triathlon.
The cyclist just beginning the grueling 112-mile cycle portion of the Budweiser Ironman Canada that will take them to Okanagan Falls, Oliver, Osoyoos, and the infamous Richter Pass. Stay with us. More from Penticton right after this. The swimmers are still approaching the finish line here in the Budweiser Ironman Canada, Okanagan Lake, the transition area. All sorts of ways, Steve King, of getting out of your wetsuit and getting to the cycle as quickly as possible. Jocelyn Muir, one of the strong swimmers in the competition amongst the women, is making her way to the transition area.
And this is her very first Ironman competition. The other lady we saw there, Karen Drake, don't forget she came 4th last year. A very good time, 11 hours, 21 minutes, so she'll be out to beat that one. But it's Jocelyn Muir running towards the change tent. Very pleased to have her here with us. She was in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago, but this is her very first Ironman attempt. She is, of course, known for Ironman-type swimming in open water distance swimming.
This may look like mass confusion as they approach the transition area, but it's all very well organized.
And Karen Drake going out in 2nd place, her time just under 57 minutes, so she's just over 7 minutes behind the leader, Bonnie Dirty, but she's a very fine cyclist. This is the portion I would expect Karen to make up a lot of time. Some of the volunteers, specific job for them is ripping off the wetsuits to help out these athletes so they don't lose those vital seconds. Karen Drake now getting onto her bike. She's already got her cleats attached to the pedals there to save some time for changing. Now she's off onto the bike portion.
And ahead of Karen, 112 miles, a grueling cycle ride.
And we must remember the record set for the cycling segment by a lady, set by last year's winner, Paula Johnson. That was a time of 5:32. This lady, however, Bonnie Dirty, who's leading now and heading south up Main Street in Penticton, hasn't had the ability nor the time because of that accident to put in the sort of training she would have liked to have done for cycling. However, with her time, remember, she wants to set that record and hold that swim record. It does mean she has to finish Ironman Canada.
And now let's join the 3rd member of our commentating team today, Michelle Gibson, who's out on the course and is trying to get a comment from Karen Drake.
Promised my mom I'd eat today.
And in fact, Karen's mother is here with her to watch this performance. Karen's 2nd attempt to do very well and place highly in Ironman Canada Triathlon.
Another shot from our helicopter looking down on the cycle course, 112 miles long. And that lake on the right-hand side is
Skaha Lake, 7.5 miles long. They're on East Side Road as they start to head towards the village of Oliver. And this man who's heading towards that village is our present leader, Chris Hinshaw. And remember, Chris Hinshaw was a man who has done extremely well in Ironman in Hawaii before, placed second in 85, and last year 14th overall, a time 9:03. Last year in Brazil, he won an Ironman distance course. He's also a very good short distance triathlete. Another man who's very good over the short distances is Rock Frey, presently in second place and ahead of the 1988 Ironman Canada winner, Ray Browning, now out of Escondido, California, and just gone beyond that 20K mark.
Ray Browning looking very smooth on the bike. Did not have the best of swims for Browning, but we know that he's very strong on the bike and he's an excellent runner.
He certainly is, and what a year he's had. He set a new course record in New Zealand earlier this year over the Ironman course, 8 hours and 35 minutes. Went on to Japan, did an 8:53 there, had a bit of a problem. Some of the swimmers today will be having a bit of a problem, and let's remember they do have up to 2 hours and 15 minutes in which to complete the swim portion of this triathlon. Some of them will take time out to get into the hot tub to lift up their body temperature. They have to be careful before going out onto the bike portion. But the temperature today, really good for this event. And one man who we're seeing for the third or fourth time, Hart Akerson, father of 7. He's a member of Mensa, but he is known for his barefoot running. We'll see that later on. Right now, we've got Peter Schmidt coming back at Ray Browning. Peter Schmidt lost a little time there in the early portion of the cycle, but he's back on track and up there going ahead of Ray Browning. Peter Schmidt from Victoria. And again, Peter was the man who placed second here in 1987, so we know he's got what it takes. He did a 9:18 clocking that year.
I don't sense any sort of panic on the part of Browning.
No, Ray never does panic. He knows exactly what he's got to do. He lists his training on a computer, as does this man, Chris Hinshaw, our present leader, member and coach of the National Triathlon Training Camp team. And he's extending his lead at this moment.
Looking down from the helicopter at the beautiful area that these cyclists are now going through, Oliver Osoyoos, which is farming country, fruit country, vineyards, and again looking at Okanagan Lake and many of the swimmers just coming out of the water as we look at Jim Brennan, who is one of the disabled athletes taking part in this year's Ironman.
Jim, as an amputee, is from Tampa, Florida, and his mentor is Jim McLaren, a man we saw finishing last year. And this man, Edson Sauer, 73 years of age, from Phoenix, Arizona, the oldest man to complete the Ironman. He holds the world record for the 70-plus category, by the way, 15:57, and he tells me he's going on to Hawaii after this event to do their Ironman too.
Somebody asked Edson if he wanted to get into the hot tub after the swim, and he said, no way. I want to get to the bike as quickly as possible. Now, we go back to 1988, and the last man to cross the finish line was Chong Lee. His time, 16 hours and 55 minutes. And look at this sprint to the finish line for Chong Lee. He wasn't going to quit. He knew he wanted to finish above all else, and that's exactly what he did. That was 1988, and the last man to cross the finish line, Chong Lee. Moving to 1989, and the leader in the competition right now, this man. And he's being followed by Schmidt and Ray Browning. Ray Browning, the 1988 winner. And this is a battle we've seen all along between Schmidt and Browning as they try to catch up to the leader.
And as they go through the village of Oliver, one thing that'll be on their minds will be approaching that Richter Pass. 56 kilometers of climbs, up and down, undulations all the way through. But to give you an idea how tough this course is, Ray Browning, the man you see there, is the only person ever to go under 9 hours on this course, set a time last year of 8 hours, 55 minutes and 39 seconds.
And this is Victoria's Dean Lindell. Unfortunately for Dean, he is not going to complete the 1989 race. He has had to pull out. We understand it might be an injury to his right leg. It could be a problem with the bike.
Yes, it's a really sad day for Dean. I know he trains really hard for this, and after last year he showed the sort of courage he had when he continued there, when he had real trouble on the run, but he continued and finished off the Ironman.
And this might be a smart move on the part of Lindell. He is obviously favoring his right leg. He's not going to push it. He's just simply going to say, hey, 1989 wasn't my year, so that's it. I'm dropping out.
And I'm sure we'll see a lot more of Dean.
Dean Lindell of Victoria, a brave competitor, and that's the end of the race for Dean, but the race does go on. And the word that Lindell has dropped out of the competition has already spread amongst the competitors.
Long day. Take it easy.
Words of advice, it is indeed a long day, and you do have to pace yourself. You do have to take it easy.
And one lady who looks very pleased with what's happening right now, and she's using that grip shift system I mentioned earlier, and you notice where she has that water bottle. No time lost there at all. But Karen Drott, lady who competed in 7 races last year and placed in the top 10 in each of them. This lady, Bonnie Dirty, though, still leading, racer number 19 from Culver City.
And as we look at Bonnie, let's go back out on the course and join our reporter, Michelle Gibson.
What's up?
Hey, it's great, man. Have a great swim. You're a little sore, but other than that, you're okay.
You're looking really strong. What's the strategy for the hill?
I'm just going to spin up them, you know, at a good pace. I got a heart monitor on, but it came unsnapped. I don't want to stop to snap it on again.
So you're surprised at how well you're doing? I mean, it's your first Ironman.
Yeah, I haven't been on the bike but once in the last month and a half. My butt's sore.
I was told I'd never run again after football, and I've gone through 11 knee surgeries, 1 shoulder surgery, a pin in my shoulder, broken most of the bones, both ankles, both wrists, numerous fractures, fingers such as that. But the knees what bother me most. But I think it's like anything else. You get used to it, and you just kind of block it out of your mind and do what you have to do. I'm not a good swimmer, I'm not a good biker, I'm not a good runner, but I put them together and I do okay. So that kind of thing.
What do you get in the end? The end of the day, what does it give you?
I guess exhaustion. No, I guess just a feeling of accomplishment. You just done one more thing, and I think so many people today they don't have any goals in their life, and just to accomplish that goal, then you set another one. It gives you something, your feet hit the floor in the morning, you're excited about living.
Ken Mitchell, the former professional football player with the NFL's Atlanta Falcons, obviously enjoying himself today in the Penticton Ironman as we look at our leader, Chris Hinshaw.
Hinshaw making the final turn at the Husky station there in Osoyoos and heading up towards the Richter Pass. 19 kilometers ahead of him before he makes a turn and then comes back down. There's Peter Schmidt and Ray Browning still closely tied together, and Ray Browning just making a move to go ahead. And let's remember Ray's time last year when he won this event for the bike portion, that was 5 hours, 3 minutes. That's averaging over 22 miles an hour, and that's exactly the sort of pace that Chris Hinshaw is on at this time. But it's going to be very hard to maintain that as they make those arduous climbs. Remember the top of the Richter, 2,295 feet.
And Penticton is at an elevation of 1,100 feet, so that gives you an idea of the type of climb that's ahead once they move into the Richter Pass.
And Chris Hinshaw opened up quite a bit on that first 38 miles as they move towards the turn here. So he'll be happy with that. No doubt someone on the course will be letting him know the exact time he's got ahead of the 2nd and 3rd place men.
And that's the battle for 2nd place between Browning and Schmidt. They have been dueling over the last few miles for 2nd place.
And Peter Schmidt, very familiar with this country around the Okanagan Valley. Let's remember, he came to Penticton 1985 and won the shorter course Beach Classic that year.
And you can see the climb now up to Richter Pass. It is indeed a grueling climb. And as John Collins, the father of the Ironman, put it, the course in Penticton is challenging in the extreme, and the support is superb. When we return to the beautiful South Okanagan Valley, we'll continue with the cycle portion of the Budweiser Ironman Canada. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 1989 Budweiser Ironman Canada that takes place in and around the South Okanagan Valley. We're looking now at Bonnie Dirty, the leading woman competitor.
And it has been confirmed, Steve, that she did in fact set a new world record for women for an Ironman distance swim. As she makes the turn, I'm sure she's going to be very, very pleased with her performance so far on the bike. She must, of course, take care because she took some pounding in her legs there when she had that bike accident. Of course, she still has, even after the bike, 26.2 miles of running left.
Steve, we have learned that Karen Dratt has made a move and is beginning to close the gap. You know, Karen is one of 811 athletes who have made the transition from the swim to the bike portion of the Ironman. And one of that number is Ken Buck Tucker, who's been joined on the road by Michelle Gibson.
You're thinking ahead about what's to come. Are you preparing yourself for Richter Pass?
Yeah.
What, 1 mile at a time?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is because of my parents. It's driving me. I want to finish for them.
Why?
Knowing that they're probably watching me up there.
So they passed away.
Yeah, both of them, yeah.
Why did they die?
Well, my father died of alcoholism, and so did my mother.
Is that something you fought with too?
Oh, yeah, for 15 years, something like that.
Any more?
No, I haven't touched a drop for 9 years now.
That kind of strength is also used in being an Ironman, I'm sure.
And I believe a lot in God. God helps me a lot. So.
Keeps things in perspective.
Yeah.
When you're out there and you're down to the wire in terms of your strength and energy, what are you thinking about? What goes through your mind? How do you get through to the end?
All them people at the finish line cheering you on, I guess.
Why bother doing this at all, though?
Because I know my parents would be proud of me. I guess so.
What about for yourself?
No, it's for them. And my wife and kids.
How are you going to feel at the end?
Real good. I'll probably start crying.
How come?
I do every other year. Because I'm so happy to be done.
So you think your parents are up there watching down?
Yeah, I know they are.
What are they saying to you right now?
That's my boy.
Ken Tucker, a one-time champion motorcyclist, now a contender in the 35 to 39 age category in the Ironman. Another top age grouper is Sonia Sottmuller from Carstairs, Alberta. And like many triathletes, she has her own reasons for taking part.
You can hardly explain to people the highs you get by doing it. The weather, the lake, the biking, it's just so wonderful. When you get this old and you can still do it, you know, that's what I like the very most of it, I think. I can keep up with my kids in anything. When they go mountain climbing, I go with them, and I don't have to be behind. I don't have to be a couch potato and sit way back and do nothing when they go skiing or whatever, because I can do it too, because there's nothing harder than this training.
What are you thinking about?
About how my husband did it yesterday. And he said, oh, it can be done, it can be done.
So he's inspiration for you. I hear people shouting at you, wishing you well.
Yeah,
That must be nice.
Yeah, and they're so, everybody's nice. Volunteers are nice. All the people here in the race, they pat you on the back and say, they know that you're old and they're really nice.
Sonia Sottmuller, one very nice lady herself and an Ironman Canada age group record holder, a personal best 13 hours 44 minutes, but she is in for one very tough race today because also in her category is Marlies Torrance of Vancouver, and these two have gone head-to-head on many occasions in the past. And another lady back in the field this year, Sister Madonna Boudou, recently won the World Championships for her age group in Avignon, France. But out in front, Bonnie Dirty, who's about to be caught by her teammate Karen Dratt. Let's hear what they had to say to each other.
Come out on the swim. How about Chris?
I don't know.
I think he's in the lead.
How do you feel?
Good. Feel really good. Make 30. You've been eating? Every 30 minutes, 100 calories, okay? Drink. See ya.
Every 30 minutes, 100 calories. That may not seem like much, Steve, but it's very important to take on food and fluid.
It certainly is, and as Chris Hinshaw approaches a turnaround point, his time, 3:11, that's really opening up on the second and third places, and just shy of the time Dean Lindell set at this point last year. But he should be taking on some liquids as he makes that turn and heads back with 56 miles of cycling ahead until he gets back into the transition area. And in second and third places now it is the Moose, Steve Wallach from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, man who placed second last year, to the man who's to his left, Ray Browning, the defending champion.
Ray Browning, the 26-year-old from Escondido, California, who won the event in 1988, being challenged now by the Moose, Steve Wallach from Moose Jaw.
And Karen Drach, her best here before, set last year when she placed fourth overall. She set a time then, 11:21. She'll certainly want to beat that. But coming in to that turnaround point, almost 10 minutes behind Chris Hinshaw. Still cycling very well, but it says a lot about Hinshaw's ability at this point. Steve the Moose Wallach making the turn. And Steve has quite a record in this event. Let's remember, in 1987 he did a 9:31, and then last year a 9:05. That's the fastest by a Canadian on the Ironman Canada course. But Chris Hinshaw just flying on the downhill section of this course in the aerodynamic position, just continuing to open up ground between himself and that chasing twosome.
He has already reached the peak at Richter Pass. He is now on the downward side. There are still some hills when you come down. You have to go back up again for just a short portion, but he is certainly on his way home.
He certainly is, and some 34, 35 minutes behind him is Karen Drach, the First Lady at this point. Now, she may have some difficulty in the running portion. She certainly did last year, but certainly I think the cycling is her strongest element in the three-discipline triathlon. And she's looking very strong. She's talking and chatting to some of the 4,000 volunteers, passing those pink flamingos that they've put there. Got to keep a little levity in this event. Remember, it's a very long day for some of the athletes. Leaders can be in around 9 hours, but some of the people, 17 hours. That's the time limit to finish all three disciplines.
Karen, some 35 minutes behind our race leader, Chris Hinshaw.
And Karen's also a fine sprint triathlete, as are both of these guys. Ray Browning, he did a half Ironman earlier this year, did a time of 4:15, but he's also won events such as the Crawfishman Triathlon down in Louisiana. And Steve, well, we haven't seen too much of him this year, but he's a phenomenal performer, and he's won a couple of times in Salmon Arm in both triathlons and biathlons. And look at the speed they're setting. And this man, Chris Hinshaw, still leading and moving further and further away. And I'm really surprised about that, but he wants to get under 5 hours for the bike portion.
And we'll keep one thing in mind as we look at our race leader, Hinshaw. He would like to break the Ironman record, and judging by his time in the swim and the cycle so far, he's right on track.
He is, and he can do it. He also did a half Ironman this year when he placed fifth in the Nevada Roadrunner. He did a time then of 4 hours, 13 minutes. He also won the old SAC Triathlon. That's in Sacramento, so the man can go for any distance, short or long tries. And for some of these people, this is their very first attempt at an Ironman distance triathlon.
And once again, it's not too hard to figure out the turning point with the help of those pink flamingos as we look again at Ray Browning, and he is right behind Steve Wallach of Moose Jaw.
And there are lots of crowds here from Osoyoos helping out at the aid station there at the Husky station. They turn a left and then they head north again towards Penticton. I think that's Bonnie Dirty who's just made the turn there. That was the lady who lost a little bit of ground now on the bike. But again, her aim today is to finish. But the aim of these two men is to win outright. And I'm sure Steve the Moose Wallach is not going to let Ray Browning get too far ahead on the bike portion. But they're going backwards and forwards here. A lot of psyching going on as well between the two of them.
And this is our race leader, Chris Hinshaw.
And Chris Hinshaw recently moved to Arcata, California, just so that he could train with Mike Pigg, ranked #1 in the world.
And it looks as if that training has paid off for Chris Hinshaw, who continues to lead at this stage in the Budweiser Ironman Canada. When we return, more action from the South Okanagan in beautiful British Columbia. Welcome back to our 1989 coverage of the Budweiser Ironman Canada.
And while Chris Hinshaw's heading towards the transition area, numbers 2 and 3, Ray Browning and Steve Wallach, are about 10 miles from that transition area, but the leader, Hinshaw, has opened up a big gap, as has this lady, Karen Drott, who is easily leading in the ladies category. She's really going well. It looks like she's on for about 5.5 to 5:45. That's her time for the bike overall if she can maintain this pace. But she'll need a big deficit between her and the next lady to hold on the run.
Whenever I've seen Karen in the race, Steve, she always looks so relaxed. She's always smiling. She looks very comfortable.
Indeed she is. And this lady has been moving through the field. It is racer number 13. That's Joni Williams from Mercer Island, Washington. We've seen her here before. She placed 7th last year. 11 hours, 31 minutes. So she'll be out to improve on that time today.
As you mentioned, we haven't seen too much of her. She's made a good move.
She certainly has. And it'll be interesting to see whether one of these two will try and make a move before getting to that transition area. Both are very fine runners.
Ray Browning on the outside, and that is Steve Wallach from Moose Jaw on the inside.
And Ray Browning, what a year he's had. I mentioned this man travels all over the world. He competed in Nice this year, placed 6th to Mark Allen there, went to Australia, placed 8th in the World Cup. He's been to Monterey Bay, he was 2nd there, lost only by 22 seconds in that race. That was similar to what happened in New Zealand last year when he placed 2nd to Scott Tinley. But this year he won it all in New Zealand and set a new course record.
Now let's go back out to Michelle Gibson, who's talking to one athlete about the new technology.
How do you like your tri-wheel?
Oh, it still gets down to the engine and not the bike. But I like it.
It makes a difference?
I'm getting faster times. I don't notice a difference subjectively though, you know?
Psychologically it helps.
Yeah, having a pretty bike helps. Puts pressure on you. Do better. Doing good.
You're really moving along. You think you're doing better than last year?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow, what do you attribute that to? Having another kid, maybe?
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Did you train any harder?
A little bit.
Well, how you feeling? You think the pacing's going all right and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think I'm doing better. I got a new handlebar too.
So it's more high-tech stuff, is that it?
A little bit.
Are you pacing yourself against anyone else, or you're riding your own race?
I'm just trying to win. Do as good as I can.
Well, he may have high-tech equipment, but he's still pedaling with bare feet and cut-off jeans. Now let's check in with 73-year-old Ed Sowers.
How's it going? How are you feeling?
Oh, feeling fine. No problems at all.
How have you been pacing yourself?
Yes. There hasn't been any wind, so we've had a good bike ride.
Have you had any the cheering from people on the sidelines? Does that help? Or
Yeah.
what have you been thinking about through this pass?
Oh, just to get over waiting for the one to go back up the other side. I kind of like this next 6 miles down here, the up and down hills.
It sounds like your attitude is it just helps you get through everything.
Oh, sure. Always.
And while Edson Sauer is still tackling the famed Richter Pass, the leader, Chris Hinshaw, is now in downtown Penticton and is not too far from the finish line of the cycle portion.
He's just got less than a mile to go, and he's easily going to get a sub-5-hour clocking. And remember, only one man has ever done that sort of a time before. We're not sure yet whether he'll set a new course record. It doesn't look like it, but he's got one turn left and about 300 meters of cycling as the thousands of spectators cheer him on towards that transition area and on to the third and final portion, the run portion of this Ironman triathlon. And what a time. Overall now about 5 hours and 43 minutes. That's just less than 1 minute slower than Dean Lindell's time into transition last year. So a brilliant performance with headed split, 4 hours, 54 minutes and 49 seconds. That was averaging 22.8 miles an hour.
And it'll be interesting to see how quickly Chris gets through the transition area. He hasn't stopped yet.
He hasn't, and we don't know just how much liquid he took on during the bike portion, and it's getting hotter and hotter as the day wears on. But, you know, he's one of the fortunate ones in some regard because he'll be able to finish this race while others still have 7-8 hours left of competition to go, but he's out very, very quickly, lost very little time there in the transition area. And when he competed last year in Hawaii, he did a time there on the marathon of 3:19. Now, if he can run somewhere around 3 hours, he should be able to hold off the second and third place men, who we understand are somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes back of him at this point.
I am sure that Chris is aware that Ray Browning is an excellent runner, so he wants to build up as big a lead as he possibly can.
And he is a good runner, even over the short distances. He placed 4th this year in Phoenix at the USTS distances. That's 1.5K of swimming, 40K of biking, and 10K of running. But he's a proven Ironman distance competitor, as I mentioned earlier, winning in Brazil last year.
Remember now, this is the start of a full marathon for the leader, Chris Hinshaw. He has to go 26.2 miles.
And he's very well aware of Ray Browning's record time of 8:55. Remember, this man placed 14th last year in Hawaii. His time then, 9 hours, 3 minutes. So he has the ability. But coming in now, we have numbers 2 and 3, and it is Steve the Moose. So Steve had a faster bike split here than Ray Browning. As he comes in, it looks like he's going to get 5:57 overall. That should give him a clocking around 5:04 for the bike portion, and that is about 4 minutes slower than what he did last year.
And that's big Steve Wallach, the firefighter from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, making his way into the transition area.
And Ray Browning right behind him, and Ray's time overall 5:57, which is in fact just over 3 minutes slower than Ray had at this time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens now. It does mean, though, that these guys have really got to fly on the run to be able to haul back Chris Hinshaw. He's got a 14-minute lead at this point with a marathon yet to go. As I mentioned, if he can do anywhere near around 3 hours, he's got it in the bag.
Ray Browning, first out of the tent. So now he will begin his battle with Chris Hinshaw. The question is, can he make up that much time?
Well, it's doubtful, but this man has shown time and time again the guts he has. He's done that before in New Zealand. He had a real tough battle with Scott Tinley last year when Tinley beat him just by 26 seconds, but he's a great runner, as is Steve the Moose Wallach. Steve last year did a 3:11 split to Ray's 3:01. So if Ray can do a 3:01 today or better, he may be able to get second place and even possibly that first place, but everything depends on what happens to Hinshaw out there on this arduous run course.
Steve Wallach from Moose Jaw now in second place. It's Chris Hinshaw out on the track already, well ahead of these two. And there he is, our race leader right now, Chris Hinshaw.
At this point, he's about 4 miles into the run course. He'll be heading out towards Okanagan Falls along East Side Road. That's where they've already been on the bike course, remember. So he'll be passing lots of other cyclists out there and his teammates from the National Triathlon Training Camp team. And that'll be including that first place lady, Karen Drott. And it is Karen that we see now, who's still about 8 to 10 miles away from that transition area as she heads the bike portion and leading the ladies' competition.
As usual, this year's Ironman competition has attracted athletes from all walks of life, and that includes Paul McKenna Jr. Now, if you recognize that name, that means that in the past, somewhere along the line, you've watched Hill Street Blues. Let's join Michelle Gibson.
I feel good. This is what I'm all about, is living every day to the fullest, and this is being alive.
Even though you're just pushing yourself to the limit.
That's what being alive is all about. There's a lot of people who wish they had this opportunity.
And you're doing it.
I'm having a ball.
You're feeling okay so far?
I'm feeling good. I'm having a good race. I'm ahead of my previous best. So if we hold on to that, it'll be a good day.
Paul, we're wishing you good thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Carry on, yeah.
See you at the beer garden.
Okay.
Paul still has quite a ways to go before he hits the promised land, the beer garden, but seems to be doing all right.
Another person doing all right, I believe, coming in there, we have Rock Frey from Stony Plain, the man who was in the lead group coming out of the swim, but I understand he's had some problems out there on the bike. We'll get to see him coming through, and that is Gerard Charlton coming in there, a man who's finished this race on a couple of occasions before and always highly placed. That is Rock Frey from Stony Plain, the man who we saw come second last weekend in Kelowna, but he is in trouble. We've seen that before. Peter Schmidt a couple of years ago had real trouble on the run as he went out to the start of the marathon and had to drop out from the race. I certainly hope that doesn't happen to Rock today.
A tough break for Rock Frey. Remember, he has finished the swim, the bike, and now in trouble as he starts the run. This man is having no trouble at all.
And that was Karen Drake, who just waved to him going up the hill there. So he must be delighted to see her leading, and I'm sure she's delighted to see teammate Chris Hinshaw leading in the run. And what a gap he has got there.
Hinshaw not hard to pick out now with that pink cap. And he is being followed by, you guessed it, Ray Browning, who has really made a move to move into second place, followed by Steve Wallach from Moose Jaw.
I'm somewhat surprised at the gap that's opened up already. Now, either Ray is well aware that he's got to motor hard and give it all he's got and then possibly suffer the consequences in the latter half, but we'll get back to that in a moment. Meanwhile, coming into transition area is the First Lady, Karen Drake, and her time coming through overall is around 6 hours and 37 minutes. That's about 8 minutes slower than Paula Johnson's time at this point in the race last year, but a very fine performance. That equates to about 5 hours and 40 minutes for Karen Drake on the 112-mile segment, the bike portion. So a phenomenal ride from her. She's made up all sorts of time. Remember, she was about 8 minutes back of Bonnie Dirty after the swim. I understand Bonnie is still out there cycling and doing very well. She's hanging in, wants to finish it off.
Again, you see Karen getting some assistance from some of the volunteers here in the Ironman competition. That is allowed. Indeed, that's encouraged.
It is, and the volunteers come from all over the country and parts of the states to be here just to be a part of this race. 4,000 also, many of them from the communities within the South Okanagan, and what an incredible amount of spectators we've got here to witness this. And out now, going on to the marathon course, Karen Drake, and mothers amongst the spectators out there, so she'll be delighted. Karen, of course, from Bakersfield, and again, this is a lady who last year competed in 7 triathlons, placing in the top 10 in all of them. Her personal best, 11 hours, 21 minutes, 34 seconds. That was set when she placed 4th last year.
So Chris Hinshaw is leading the men on the course right now, and the top female about to begin the marathon is Karen Drake. We'll continue our coverage from beautiful Penticton in just a moment. The Californian Chris Hinshaw continues to lead the Budweiser Ironman Canada competition, and in the women's competition, Joni Williams of Washington State has moved into second place.
And this is her 4th Ironman. She's competed twice before in Hawaii, and this is her 2nd occasion here in Penticton. Last year, placing 7th out of the ladies with a time 11 hours, 31 minutes. She's up on that time at this moment, and she'll really be pleased if she could hold on to second place.
Joni Williams has just finished the 112-mile cycle portion, is now White going to make her way to the tent, change her clothing, put on her runners, and start the marathon portion, 26 miles.
And as Joni looks extremely comfortable at this point, other people are having some difficulty.
And that's not unusual in this kind of an event, although, Steve, I have to admit, due to the nature of the course, I'm surprised that more haven't dropped out.
So am I, Steve, but weather conditions today very favourable, and one lady who's really looking good out there is the second placer going out, Joni Williams from Mercer Island. But what she'll be seeing very shortly is last year's second placer. There she is, JulieAnne White from Barrie, Ontario. It's the first chance we've had to see her. She did 1 hour and 10 minutes for the swim, so 20 minutes after the Bonnie Dirty came out the swim, that's when we saw JulieAnne White. So she's made up all sorts of time on the bike. Her bike time around 5 hours 44 minutes, so 4 minutes slower than Karen Dratz, but she is a phenomenal runner. She did the fastest run split last year for the ladies, 3 hours and 10 minutes, and if she can repeat that, she can make up all sorts of ground. Certainly she's had a great season. She placed second just a couple of weeks ago in Orillia in the half Ironman. She lost that race by a mere 22 seconds, and that was to Terry Smith-Ross from Calgary, who was on the Canadian national team that competed in the World Championships in Avignon. So JulieAnne White going out in third place overall, and she will be very happy with the time she's recorded so far. Looking now to have his bag opened up there at the 14-mile turnaround point. Remember, it's not exactly halfway, it's just beyond the halfway mark. It's now Chris Hinshaw. This is in Okanagan Falls. 800 residents of the Falls, and I'm sure most of them are out there today watching Chris Hinshaw, the lead man.
Hinshaw led after the swim, he led after the cycle, and he continues to lead during the run as we take a look at the course.
It is an out and back course from that transition area, and the man who would have seen him is this man, second placer Ray Browning, who's making all sorts of inroads into the lead that Hinshaw has, and yet Hinshaw is onto a very fine pace. And we can determine just how fast Ray has been going because of the gap he's opened up over third placer Steve Wallach. And Steve is doing very well. But going into second place, just 4 miles into the run portion for the women, there goes JulieAnne White overtaking Joni Williams. So a very fine start to the run portion for JulieAnne. She was my pre-race favourite. This lady, though, still out in the lead, Karen Dratz, but unfortunately losing some very valuable time as she gets some of the volunteers to tend to the very bad blisters.
That's a common occurrence amongst triathletes, and certainly it comes into play during the marathon. This is when you feel the heat coming up through the ground. It is a warm summer's day in Penticton, and she has really been pushing herself in the marathon run portion, and unfortunately for Karen, the blisters have come into play.
They have, but this man's looking good. Steve Wallach now making the turn. And Steve is a very strong runner. He has a rugby player type build. He in fact used to be a rugby player and was in fact on Canada's America's Cup sailing team a couple of years ago. That's because of his strength. This man looking good though. Chris Hinshaw still going at a very comfortable pace. His arms are down, looking relaxed. He knows what he's got to do. However, he'll be asking himself the question, where is Ray Browning?
And I notice that Chris hasn't looked back too often during the run. This is Ray Browning, the defending champion in the Ironman competition. His time last year, 8:55.39. And I'm sure that he's aware if he keeps up this pace, he could set a new record.
He can, but we're back to the ladies on the first of the big climbs at 8 miles, and we're about to see a change in the lead. Barrie's JulieAnne White is now overtaking Karen, and Karen, what a nice person she is. A great personality, still very friendly as she gives JulieAnne a tap there and wishes her well as JulieAnne strides ahead.
So JulieAnne White, the massage therapist, about to become one. She is studying that art, has taken over the lead amongst the women as Chris Hinshaw from Arcata, California, continues to lead the men. But it looks to me, Steve, as if he's slowing down just a bit.
He might be slowing down, but I think what's happening out there is some of the people in those following vehicles may have let him know that Browning is making up all sorts of time. Certainly Browning is getting to know the distance, but this lady now moving further and further away, and her time last year overall 10 hours and 16 minutes and 27 seconds. She'll be out to break that today, and she's comfortably well inside that time if she can maintain this pace. A phenomenal runner, as I said, a 3:10 last year. Easily the fastest in the women's last year.
JulieAnne White from Barrie, Ontario, second last year, and she is now on target to better that.
But look at this, we're 2.5 miles from the finish line down Main Street, and there goes Ray Browning. He gives Chris Hinshaw a little tap, and Chris must be devastated by this now. He's been leading for well over 8 hours, and now he sees Ray Browning just taking off. How does he come to terms with this? One man, though, who is really feeling good must be Ray Browning from Escondido. He knows now he's got it in the bag. He knows that Chris is just devastated by what's happened. And this lady, who could have been devastated, now probably just wants to finish this off because those blisters are hurting.
Karen Drack from Bakersfield, California, who has been plagued with blisters, and now she's stopped. She has stopped. She's walking. Obviously, those blisters have become far too painful. She just can't continue, although I'm betting that Karen will finish this race. She is that kind of competitor.
I'm sure you're right, Steve, because she'll want to finish for herself, for her team, and for her mother who's out there supporting her.
And there's no trouble with blisters for this competitor, Hart Akerson.
You run bare feet because you say the energy comes up through your feet.
Right, exactly.
So you must be getting good energy today.
Yeah, I am.
Listen, we'll see you at the finish line.
Okay, all right.
Wonderfully well.
That's not going to do a thing for the running shoe industry.
It certainly isn't. There's a lady I'm really pleased to see at last. That's Sharon Best, the lady who won this event when it was an ultra in 1985. But poor Karen Drack, look at those feet.
Yes. Can I beat my time from last year? Yes. I'm determined. The blister's really slowing me down. I'm having a hard time.
I can well imagine.
So as Karen goes off, she in fact goes ahead of the third placer there now, Joni Williams, who's now walking.
And Karen still has 12 miles to go to the finish line. But this man only has about 100 meters to go. It is Ray Browning, the defending champion in the Ironman competition. And Browning is going to repeat. And what a tremendous time this is going to be for Browning. His time last year, 8:55.39. He is going to better that and win the 1989 Budweiser Ironman Canada competition. And what a marvelous time. 8 hours, 44 minutes, and 12 seconds. A remarkable time for Ray Browning. A superb effort from start to finish. Remember, he ran second to Chris Hinshaw throughout most of the race. He made a remarkable move in the marathon and posted a tremendous time in the run.
He certainly did, Steve. His time in the marathon, 2:46. That is 6:21-minute miling. And here comes Chris Hinshaw. What a devastating blow it was for him as Ray Browning passed him. But what a lot of guts this man has. And he's going to be only the second person ever to go under 9 hours for the Ironman Canada course. And he himself has set a very fine running time. He's at around 3 hours and 6 minutes for the run. What a performance, a gutty performance from this young man from Arcata, California, as he comes in to wrap up the second place, and only the second man again under 9 hours. He must be pleased but also somewhat disappointed about what happened 2.5 miles away from that finish tape that he's just hit in 8 hours, 50 minutes and 15 seconds. His time for the marathon, 3 hours, 6 minutes and 47 seconds.
An excellent time for Chris Hinshaw from Arcata, California, who must be disappointed because he did lead the race for so much time.
And one lady who just assumed the lead after 8 miles of running was JulieAnne White, and she is the lady who wants to beat her time. Another man who's going to beat his time and coming in third place this year. What a record he's had in the last 3 years. He was third in 87, second in 88, and today third again with a new personal best for himself. 9 hours and 2 minutes on the clock as he comes in, and his time for the marathon will be around 3 hours and 4 minutes. It's a 9:02:18 clocking for Steve the Moose Wallach.
The pride of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, the firefighter in that town. He has just completed a great race.
And while Steve has finished, what's happening in the ladies is Donna Mazurkiewicz of Vancouver is about to take over second place from Sharon Best of Nelson, the 1985 winner.
When we return, the completion of the 1989 Budweiser Ironman Canada competition. Welcome back to the Ironman as we look at Brian Countryman from Edmonton taking 4th place.
And he is in 43 minutes faster than his time last year. He really stormed the run, a 2:54 clocking on the marathon course for Brian Countryman. And in 5th place overall, a jubilant Peter Schmidt from Victoria, also setting a PR.
Now let's go to Michelle with the winner of the 89 event.
Oh, you came from behind. You had to follow Chris Rowe.
Yeah, I was about 15 minutes behind at the start of the run, and that's a lot of time to make up on someone. But I thought, well, if I go out and run hard the first 13 miles to the turnaround and see how much time I could make up, and I thought if I could get within, 7 or 8 minutes, like half the deficit, then maybe I have a chance of reeling him in. And I went from 15 minutes down to 6 minutes down at the turnaround. So that gave me, a glimmer of hope there. And the people on the course were just phenomenal, just, you can get him all the way along, really, really supportive, and that makes all the difference in the world.
So are we going to see you back here next year going for the 3rd one?
I think so. This is a great race. It's such a great town, and the people out here are wonderful, and it's organized to perfection. So, hats off to the whole organizing committee, Lynn Van Dove, and the sponsors. It's just, you can't be better done, that's for sure.
A 2nd straight victory for Ray Browning, and the women's champion is going to be JulieAnne White from Barrie, Ontario.
And what a great run split from JulieAnne. It's going to be around 3 hours and 6 minutes as she comes in to win the 1989 Ironman Canada time. 10 hours, 1 minute and 1 second. A brilliant victory for this young lady. 2nd last year and 1st in 89.
And while JulieAnne White has won, there's a great battle shaping up for 2nd place between Cody and Best. Now let's go to Michelle.
You looked really strong out there. You looked like you were giving it your all.
Well, actually, I think I gave it all I had today. I think, on a different day, I might have gone a little better. I didn't feel particularly well today. But you take what you got, Get out there and do it, that's all.
You did terrifically well. Congratulations again.
Thanks.
And another athlete who's done terrifically well is this lady, Yvonne Cody, who's moved through to 2nd place on the run. 19th last year in 12:14. And this year, 10 hours, 38 minutes and 42 seconds. A brilliant performance. She was 2nd earlier this year in a half Ironman, but who expected that? And just behind her, Sharon Best from Nelson, and her time, 10 hours, 39 minutes and 42 seconds. A great battle for 2nd and 3rd places over the last couple of miles.
And coming in to take 6th place in the women's event, Joni Williams from Washington State.
And behind her, Karen Drop. What a magnificent performance from Karen. Places 8th in the ladies and a new personal best, 11 hours and 4 minutes, 17 minutes faster than the time recorded last year. Other finishers now starting to come in, over 11 and a half hours into the competition. And that is one of them, Jocelyn Muir, the young lady, Canada's ultra-distance swimmer, finishing her first Ironman, 11 hours and 57 minutes.
And she looks like she might be in a bit of trouble, but she's got lots of help. Jocelyn Muir has just finished, and she appears to be in a little bit of pain.
I'm not surprised, a lot of guts, and this lady has a lot of guts. This was the lady who set a swim record under 50 minutes. Bonnie Dirty coming in overall with a time 12 hours and 4 minutes, and that's a 21st place female finishing off there. She's very happy about that, her very first Ironman finish. Another man who's always delighted to finish the Ironman, Ken Tucker from Kelowna. And he gets just over 12 hours. Congratulations to Ken. His family will be delighted with another Ironman finish. And this lady, Marlies Torres from Vancouver, about to set a new world record. She dedicated this race to her parents, Herb and Martha Liebig from Toronto. 12 hours, 19 minutes and 52 seconds. A new women's age group record for the 50 to 54 category.
And the man who did the entire distance in bare feet, Hart Akerson.
And Hart sets a time 3 hours faster than he did a couple of years ago as he's greeted at the end his wife and 7 children, a very happy family.
Many, many stories in the 89 Ironman competition. This is just one of them. Ken Mitchell, the former NFLer with the Atlanta Falcons, on those wonky knees. He, too, is about to finish.
Ken is a resident of Winter Park, Florida, and he's about to get a sub-13-hour clocking. It'll put him in 548 position as he comes up to that wire, and he's going to get a time of 12 hours, 51 minutes and 33 seconds.
Tremendous effort for Ken when you consider the condition of those knees. No knee problems for Paul McKenna Jr. He finishes alongside Jim Boldra.
Part of the Ironman experience, of course, is the camaraderie, and both of these guys hitting the line and giving the thumbs up. Another job well done for those two Ironman finishers.
And a job well done for Chong Lee. He was dead last year, but look at his time this year.
Almost 3 hours faster than his time of last year. He's one of the many Japanese entrants into the race this year, and we were privileged to witness a Japanese wedding ceremony at the conclusion of the race, right there at the finish line.
And as the Japanese couple celebrate their nuptials, 73-year-old Ed Sauer is determined he is going to finish this race. Now, let's go back to Michelle Gibson at the finish line.
Where do you go from here? You've actually done it. You've done an Ironman. I mean, those knees held up. I mean, you're in pain, but hey, you're still standing.
Well, let me tell you the interesting thing. I've never really told anybody this. I don't hope it doesn't ruin the interview. I was told less than 2 years ago I had about a week to live. I have about 12% of my liver left. I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I lived almost 39 years and never knew it. And I was fed alcohol when I was a little kid, and I just thought everyone else had a problem, and so I almost died. They gave me about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks to live, about 7 doctors. And I just, good Lord kept me alive, and I just vowed I was going to do everything I could with my life, you know, so I just thank the good Lord for letting me finish. So it's exciting for me.
Ken, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
As the athletes continue to cross the finish line here in Penticton, Steve King, I don't think there's any question that the 1989 event will go down in the record books as a record-breaking year.
It certainly will, Steve. What we've seen today is defending champion Ray Browning coming back to win for the second consecutive year and a new course record. We've also seen Marlies Torrance set a new world record in the ladies 50 to 54 category. 9 of the 18 age category records broken today, and of course, more finishers than ever here in Ironman Canada in Penticton. A beautiful day.
For Steve King and Michelle Gibson, I'm Steve Armitage saying so long from the beautiful South Okanagan Valley. And before we leave you, let's take a final look at the results. The winner, Ray Browning, with a new course record of 8:44.10. The top Canadian with the best ever Canadian time in the event, Steve Wallach of Moose Jaw. JulieAnne White was the story on the women's side, an overwhelming victory, 37 minutes in front of Vancouver's Yvonne Cody, Canadian women placing 1, 2, 3. The last official finisher and placing 779th, Edson Sauer with a time of 16 hours, 55 minutes and 50 seconds. At the tender age of 73, he becomes the oldest man to finish this grueling event, proving once again you're only as old as you feel. This has been the 1989 Budweiser Ironman Canada.